Hi, I'm Kevin Bouley, Instructional Designer in the Center for Excellence in Teaching and Learning, or CETL, at Reynolds Community College. Starting spring 2026, all instructional content must meet ADA accessibility standards, including tables. Whether you're adding tables in Word documents or directly in Canvas, it's important they're built to be readable by screen readers. Unfortunately, many tables, even well-meaning ones, are still created in ways that can't be interpreted by assistive technology. In this short video, I'll explain why accessible tables matter, walk through the required elements for compliance, and show you how to create accessible tables in both Microsoft Word and Canvas. Let's start with why this matters. Screen readers process tables cell by cell in a linear fashion. If headers aren't defined, or if a table is used for layout instead of data, the structure breaks, and students can't make sense of what they're hearing. For example, here's a simple table of Star Wars characters, their roles, when they appeared, and lightsaber colors. This kind of data is perfect for a table because the relationship between rows and columns matter, and those rows and columns are what we define with headers. What's a table header? A table header is the first row or column that labels what each row or column of data represents. It gives meaning to the information in the table and tells a screen reader how to describe each cell. When tables aren't accessible, it can impact students who are blind or low vision, anyone using assistive technology or mobile readers, and learners who rely on clear data relationships to understand your content. Simply put, an inaccessible table can turn helpful information into a frustrating experience. Here are the key things every table must include. Only use tables for data, not for visual layout. Using tables to position text or images side by side, like formatting a syllabus or arranging a banner, can confuse screen readers, which expect tables to contain meaningful, structured information. Tables should follow a logical tab order, meaning that when you press the tab key on your keyboard, the cursor should move smoothly through the cells left to right, top to bottom. That's a quick way to check if a screen reader will follow your table properly. If the cursor jumps around out of order, the table wasn't built correctly, and students using assistive technology will struggle to make sense of it. Always include a header row and make sure it's marked as a header. If your table includes key categories down the first column, like in our Star Wars tables example, you may also want to mark the first column as a header. This helps screen readers make sense of both row and column labels. For example, in our Star Wars table, the top row, character, row, first appearance, and lightsaber color should be marked as a column header with scope set to column. That way, when a student lands on green, the screen reader can say lightsaber color, green. You can also mark the first column, the character names, as row headers with scope set to row, so that when a reader reaches Rebel Leader, it announces Leia Organa, role Rebel Leader. Avoid split, merged, or nested cells as they confuse screen readers and can render your table unreadable. And finally, every table needs a caption, a short sentence above or below the table that explains what the data shows and why it matters. In Microsoft Word, start by inserting your table as usual. Use the Table Design tab to mark the header row, then right-click and go to Table Properties. Under the Row tab, check Repeat as Header Row at the top of each page. Make sure Allow Row to Break Across Pages is unchecked. This helps screen readers read more consistently. If your first column functions as labels, like names, categories, or key identifiers, you can also mark those cells as row headers. Again, in our Star Wars example, the first column lists characters, so it makes sense to mark those as headers. But not every table needs this. If the first column is just data, you can leave it as is. Do a quick tab test. Can you tab smoothly through the cells in left to right, top to bottom order? If so, you're in good shape. If the cursor jumps around out of order, then the table wasn't built correctly. To fix this, recreate the table using the Insert Table tool instead of copying and pasting from another source. Avoid merging or splitting cells, and make sure every row and column is part of the same simple grid. This ensures assistive technology can interpret the table in the right sequence. Finally, add a caption right above or below your table using regular text. This gives context to all students. If your caption is clear, alternative text may not be necessary, but it is available under the Alt Text tab in Table Properties if needed. In Canvas, use the Rich Content Editor to insert your table. First, mark the top header row or column headers. Do this by clicking anywhere in the top row. Then on the Rich Content Editor toolbar, find and select the table icon. Scroll down to Row, Row Properties, and set the row type to header. You can also set the alignment to center, but not required. You only have to set this to one top header row, and it will apply to the rest. This will convert those cells into column headers, so everything underneath them is announced correctly by screen readers. Next, mark the first column row headers if applicable. In this example, the labels Luke Skywalker, Leia Organa, Darth Vader, and Ahsoka Tano tell the screen reader who each row of data belongs to, so they should be treated as headers. Please note, though, that not every table will need row headers. It only applies when the first column acts as a label for the rest of the row, like names, categories, or key identifiers. Click each cell in the first column, or the character names. Go to the table icon again on the Rich Content Editor, click Cell and Cell Properties. Then in the dialog box, you'll set the cell type to header and set the scope to row. You'll repeat this for each character name. So, for example, when a student lands on Rebel Leader, the screen reader will now say Leia Organa, role Rebel Leader. This ensures every row of data is tied back to the right character. For best practice, also set explicit scope for each top row header, as well as the first column headers, which we already did. So for the scope for the top row header, you'll click inside any header cell, choose the table icon on the Rich Content Editor, choose Cell, then Cell Properties. For the top row headers, you'll set the cell type to header and the scope to column. Repeat for the other header cells and click Save. Avoid merging cells, use extra rows or columns instead. And finally, add a caption in the regular content area just above the table or below the table to explain what the data shows. We'll leave it out intentionally in our demo here for the moment. After completing your table, make sure you use the Canvas's built-in accessibility checker down below. It can catch things like missing captions, like we just left off, or unmarked headers before your students do. It's a simple process, but these steps make a big difference. All right, let's recap some common issues to avoid. Using tables to format or arrange content visually, forgetting to mark the header row, merging cells in the top row or elsewhere throughout the table, nesting tables inside of other tables, forgetting to set the header scope for more complex tables with both row and column labels, skipping the tab test, and most importantly, leaving out a caption to explain the table's purpose. Even one of these can make your table inaccessible to students who rely on assistive technology. To wrap up, accessible tables aren't just good practice, as they'll be required by law starting spring 2026. Both Microsoft Word and Canvas make it easy to meet these standards. You just have to use the right options when you build your tables. You'll find links to instructions, guides, and other accessibility resources below this video or on the CETL resource page it lives on. And if you're not sure how to fix a table or want a quick recap or one-on-one consultation, reach out to us at CETL at cetl@reynolds.edu or visit us on our website at go.reynolds.edu/CETL, CETL. Just like the Force, accessibility binds everything together. When your tables are accessible, every learner can make sense of the information. Thanks for watching.